This is Brooke Wanser, the reporter for the Franklin Home Page. I'm here today with Bev Berger, the Ward 1 Alderman. Bev is up for re-election, and we're going to ask her, Bev, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and why you are seeking re-election this year?
Sure. Yes, Beverly Berger. Everyone calls me Bev, and I've lived in Franklin 15 years, and have married to Dr. Ken Berger, who's a professor, and we have 3 sons and 2 daughter-in-laws and 3 grandsons, and now a new granddaughter. Actually, she is the first girl in our family with the name Berger in 100 years. So we're so excited about that. Celebrating that in the last couple weeks. I ran for election for Alderman in 2005 and sat down with the leaders in our community to learn about Franklin. I'd been coming up here for years from Alabama. Our kids played soccer here. We got to know the area very well, saw the Galleria being built, saw the first streetscape in Main Street. That was just amazing when we came here and saw that happen. So been really keeping my pulse on Franklin all these years, never knowing that we would have the opportunity to live here. And when my husband took the position in Nashville at Trevecca University, it was really exciting to us that we could come and actually live and be in Franklin. So I've always been involved in our communities, and I wanted to get involved immediately here. And so I met with leaders and talked to people and tried to learn all I could about the history here and things that I really didn't know before. And that seat was vacant. It was the incumbent was not running again. So I ended up choosing to run for that seat and won by 24 votes. And it was a great election. I was really appreciative of the people that I ran with. Carol Krupp was a great contender, and we became friends afterwards, and I loved every minute of getting to know the community. And I've delved in and really gone to work to try to really study the issues. What I did was I met with all the department heads and tried to learn everything I could about the departments that first year. It was my learning year. And then after that, started to speak up to the public and for the constituents. All along, keeping my pulse on what's going on in my ward, but at the same time getting to know how government really worked here in Franklin. And so it was great, and I enjoyed it immensely because I'm a people person. I love working with people, and I'm a problem solver. I love solving problems, and it can be anything from somebody had a dead deer in the backyard to, hey, we've got this regional water problem that the city says is not regional. It's coming into our homes, it's coming into our yards, and pretty soon into our homes. And so when I go out and take a look at that and say, hey, engineering team, come out and look at this. I think we have something here that we're not seeing, that it may be a regional problem, it may be a city issue. And then I can take care of that, and we've been able to do, I'm on my 3rd regional stormwater restoration project, because it is regional problems where we have identified those in the different parts of the ward. So I feel really good about that because we're able to protect people's homes. That's their biggest investment, and that's really important. I have a background in journalism, in marketing, and I've had a marketing company since 1996, and usually do jobs when I want to. Basically, in the last 10 years, I've sort of phased off back from some of that, but then in the last 4 or 5 years, I've stepped it up again. And I think my marketing research really serves me well in my position because it makes me want to find out the facts. It makes me want to go after what is really behind the issue. What are the facts? So that I can inform my constituents, so when they give me their opinion, it's an informed opinion and not just an opinion. It's really important to me to have an informed opinion. So when people call me up and they're excited about something or they're mad about something, then I can give them the facts, and I feel like I've got a really solid opinion from people. Other than that, I enjoy being involved in my church here, Parish Presbyterian, involved in the Clapham group, which is a group that speaks into the culture of the day from a biblical worldview. Sit on the board of the Kings Meadow Study Center, and used to be on the board of Bridges, and I'm involved in some other community aspects too.
Thank you. So I have a list here of some business-related questions since we're at the Chamber of Commerce.
Yeah, great.
So we're going to talk a little bit of business today.
Good.
My first question is, what is the status on the proposal to replace City Hall, and is that a priority to you?
Oh, good question. Well, City Hall, if somebody walks into City Hall and looks at it, they say, what's wrong with City Hall? It looks pretty good to me. It was an old mall, and we repurposed it for City Hall years ago. And if you really delve into the issues of City Hall, you'll know we have leaking roofs and leaks on our computers. I mean, we have buckets all over the place. We're constantly repairing things. I think it has some environmental issues as well. And so we probably, we put more money into City Hall than we really need to. And so there are issues there. It's a lot of issues with our technology, and so we've had to make do. In 2007, we had a possibility of a public-private partnership that came to us. So we looked at that when Mayor John Shore was our mayor. And what happened was the downturn came and then it went away, and that all petered out, and we didn't get the opportunity for that. So recently we have put that back on our list, and why we have done so is because we know someday we are going to have a new City Hall. When that is, I'm not so sure, but we'll see. We're still hanging in there. We're renovating and doing all the things we can to stay in it now. The other thing is that when a public-private partnership does come to us, if we are so fortunate to have one, maybe half of that, if you know where the block is on 3rd Avenue, and here's the square, here's the statue in the square in that corner, we need to build City Hall on that corner. Probably 2, 3, 4 stories, not any higher than that bank building is being built near with Bernie Butler's building. But if you cut that lot in half, the back half, if we went up, we could actually do a public-private partnership where someone could put a boutique hotel, or they could put townhomes or something else in the back. And then we lease them the land for $1 a year for 100 years or something. And instead of costing, we put a price tag on this of $24 million. Pretty decent guess at it. Instead of doing that, they might say, well, hey, we'll build it for you for $8 million if you will lease us this land and let us have the opportunity to build on the back of it. So those public-private partnerships, I think, for cities are extremely important because it saves our taxpayer dollars. It also gets us a new City Hall when we need it. Now, why do we have it on the list? It's because the mayor and the alderman have discussed this, and we've all said, if it's not on our list, we're not going to look at it. So it's very important that we put it on our list. So if a public-private partnership comes along, or an opportunity comes along, that's on our list, and then we can say, hey, let's look at it. And every time we put something on the list, of course we put a price tag with it. And I know when my opponent said something about, I think he chastised us pretty well and said, don't you dare build City Hall until you do all the road projects. Road projects, City Hall, a lot of these things are in the different categories. And we are not spending $24 million in City Hall. It's a price tag. And it's there to give us a logical look at saying what would it cost and what would happen if a public-private partnership came along.
Now, I've heard you speak favorably of public-private partnerships in the past. Can you tell me why that is important to you and why it's important to the city of Franklin to have those partnerships?
Because public-private partnerships are important because I don't think that we can do everything ourselves. Government shouldn't be an entity by itself. It should really partner with the community. And private entities also need government to help in different aspects. But I think also we have to be very careful of our jurisdictions. To me, my personal opinion has been, if you look at history, we have messed up our jurisdictions all over the place. We have federal government's jurisdiction is all over the place. They're in people's lives from A to Z. And the churches have lost their jurisdiction. We used to take care of the poor and the widow, and we used to be the people in the community that helped. And we gladly somehow gave that jurisdiction over to the government. So these jurisdiction lines are all messed up in my opinion. So when I look at public-private partnerships, I go, what about jurisdictions? Whose jurisdiction is what? The public, the private enterprise. So we have to be careful when we look at public-private partnerships. But how can we look at them and how can we entertain an idea about public-private partnerships and how do they work for us. And some of them may not work for us. Recently, we had one at the bank building downtown where we owned the property at 5 Points, and we did a public-private partnership with a bank. And they've taken and renovated that entire property, which was in a disastrous condition, really bad. And ask Mary Pierce, she'll tell you when the Heritage Foundation was in there, it was pretty bad. So we did that first public-private partnership, and I think that's worked out well. And Tuesday night, the board voted to enter into another public-private partnership with 54 acres of mainly floodplain that they own over at MacHatcher and Spencer Creek Road to extend the golf course over there at Cheekwood Golf Club so they can expand and bring more amenities and opportunities to our community, like the senior golf leagues and the senior people, but also very much so into our school systems where our golf teams need places to go, and also golf scholarships are not used. We have millions of dollars in golf scholarships that are not used. So we look at these public-private partnerships and say, what makes sense for the city of Franklin? Some may make sense, some may not. So each needs to stand alone, and we need to consider the opportunities, the pros and the cons, and if it's right for us.
My next question is on paid parking. Paid parking spaces recently became a reality on some private property in downtown Franklin. Should the city get in on parking meters or paid parking spaces downtown?
Good question. Let's ask Margaret Martin that. That's her award. No, seriously. Well, it's been a great opportunity for our residents and our tourists, both combined, to have the opportunity to park free downtown. And that's one thing I hear from the tourists that come. They say, we love the fact that we can come to your city and you have parking all over. You can, the garages are on Main Street and you're not charging for it. And they said, that is really great. And people have told me that over and over and over. I think people that, and entities or businesses that own their own private spaces, they have a right to do with those spaces what they want. Now, if they choose to go ahead and open it up to the public and they want to charge for it, that is their right. I don't think government needs to get into saying, well, you shouldn't do that, or we don't want you to do that. We don't have a say in that. So these people who own these private spaces downtown, if they want to charge, I think great. Let them charge, because it gives us additional parking. It gives us the use, it gives our tourists, it gives especially our residents when it want to come downtown an opportunity to park if the other spaces are all tied up. It gives us an opportunity to also park somewhere and pay for it if we want. Now if they don't, they can park blocks away and walk, which is fine. We do that all the time in Nashville. And we're a little spoiled here in Franklin. We think we park a block. Oh my gosh, it's a block. So you go to Nashville and it's like, oh, I'm so glad I got a parking space and I only have to walk 3 blocks. So I think sometimes it's in our mindset. So I think that if you're a public, if you're a private space, I think then that is up to you if you want to charge. Now, we have to decide as a board whether we're going to start charging for our parking garages or our parking spaces along Main Street. My gut reaction is, let's not do it. Let's not do that. I don't think that's wise. But at the same time, from a fiduciary responsibility, I have to say, what is our responsibility? Because we're footing a bill all the time to continue to take care of the parking garages, and we're doing these things through the city tax dollars. So I think that's going to be a discussion we're going to have, and we're going to have a serious discussion of what is best for Franklin, what is best for us, and what's best for our residents first, and then the tourists as well. There might be an opportunity possibly to take and do some kind of pass, where you could buy a year pass if you're a resident here. It gives you a pass, and for, a certain amount of money, you can buy a pass that lets you park free of charge in any garage or other places. We certainly need more garages. We need more parking garages. We're getting a new parking garage with the hotel downtown, and there will be some, I believe, spaces out there for people, well, in that parking garage. But it is privately owned. It's not a public garage. So I think we need a new public garage, an additional one. And whether we charge for that will be a decision by the Board of Mayor and Alderman. And I think we have to weigh all the pros and cons. And we have to hear from our community. We have to hear from the citizens. Because first of all, we have to pay attention and we have to serve the people who are here and living here. And second of all, then we need to look at our tourists and how that will impact, I think, maybe the businesses downtown.
I have a question on quote-unquote corporate welfare. Has this area come to depend on corporate incentives too much for relocation or expansion?
Off the top of my head, I would say no. I'm a little cautious, to say the least, on abatements, tax abatements, although I voted for a number of them. Just recently, an article came out in the Nashville Business Journal about the Nashville, I think it was John Cooper, Joe Cooper's, isn't it Joe Cooper, Representative Cooper's brother, who's on the city council there, and he has challenged that. Well, I'll tell you, my personal opinion is that I believe that Nashville hands them out right and left, maybe like candy. And I don't think Franklin has been that way at all. I think we've looked at it, and I'm not into government picking winners and losers. I think we're looking at who are the winners here already. And we're saying, how important is it that we keep this in our community? How important is it that we bring this company to our community? Now we know for a fact Nissan had many offers around the nation, and they really were attracted to our community for a number of reasons. And when they walked our downtown, they were extremely impressed with our downtown because they were looking for a place that they could bring their employees that had ambiance, they had culture, it had different aspects that they were looking for their employees. Education is another one. And so all those things went together, but they had packages, people in cities willing and ready to give them packages. And so we had to say, how important was it? I think that was a good move. We had the Lee Company and Dave Ramsey, Lampo Company just recently that we gave a tax abatement to. My bottom line is, do we receive more than we give? And that has got to be the bottom line. I know for a fact, and in fact I just had a conversation 2 days ago, about a 20-minute conversation with Dave Ramsey, who's a constituent of mine. And we talked, I asked for his vote, and we were talking about the tax abatements, and he said, I wanted to stay in Williamson County, but he said it is a business decision. And he said he could easily have moved to Rutherford County. And another place was out of state, in another state, a very prominent state, that was offering him a large amount of money to move. And that business decision, I would say we were that close for him to pick up everything and move. And he would have moved his people. And people don't believe it, but it's true. He's going to tell me the truth. We were sitting there talking, and I said, I want to know, were you even close to moving? He said, oh, absolutely. He said, did I want to move? No. Did I want to leave Williamson County? No. Did I want to leave Tennessee? I grew up here. No. But he said, I'm a businessman. And we all know what Dave Ramsey's about. You know, he's getting the most for his dollar. He's buying things for cash. He is, you know, the power broker of money and trying to help people to live their lives in a responsible manner. So when I heard this from Dave, I said, this is what I've heard, but I want to hear it from you. And he said, yes. He said I could have left very easily. But he said I didn't want to. But he said I needed something. But I said, I looked at on the sheet what we had agreed to, and we are getting back in the end much more than we are giving up front. We never abate any of the school taxes, which is extremely important. I would never vote for anything where we abated school taxes. That's too important to me. The other thing is the fact that he is very much into, hiring more people and putting on more employees. And so that was part of the abatement, that he had to agree to hire, I think it was 396 or 69 employees in the next 5 years, I believe it was. And if that doesn't happen, the abatement goes away. So there's really good checks and balances within the abatements. And so I would say we have to look at each one by itself in its own merit, and do we get more than we give? And also, is it good for the Franklin brand? Is it a winner? Is a winning company that brings something to our brand that strengthens our city and strengthens our residents and adds to our quality of life?
So my next question is about this region of the country and economic growth. Middle Tennessee area and Williamson County especially have been a hotbed for economic growth in the past couple of years. Do you think what do you think it is about this area? Is it something inherent in the state, or is it something policy-wise that made people flock to here where we are?
I think it's both. I think we have a beautiful state. I used to travel through the state as a child all the time, and I always remember from Ohio, as soon as we hit Tennessee, it was so beautiful. I lived in Virginia 3 times, and Virginia and Tennessee are very similar, and just full of trees and beauty. And we've been so blessed with beauty in this state. Rolling hills, the mountains. We're also centrally located, Brooke, so it's a great place to have business because you can get on a plane, you can be any place you want to within a reasonable amount. You're not like way over in California or way over in New York where you have to fly across the country. We're smack dab almost in the middle. It's a great place to be. Very close to the shore as well, and we're close to the mountains. We have mountains. So it's a wonderful place, and I think the policies, first of all, not having a state income tax is extremely important. If you look at all the states around the nation, we are one of the tops, if not the top, because we're a very fiscally healthy state, and people are attracted to that. You look at the other states that are with the income tax, they have all sorts of issues, and I'm thankful that we do not. We've got to continue that fiscal responsibility in our state. So I think that attracts businesses. I think it attracts families to come and live here. People want to move. I can't tell you how many people I've met said, we just looked around the country and we wanted to move. We wanted to get out of California. We wanted to get out in New York. We wanted to get out of Florida. We wanted to get out of wherever. And we wanted to do something different. And we looked around, and when we came to visit here, we fell in love with it here. We fell in love with the people. We fell in love with low taxes. We have to be able to make sure that we're doing the things that we continue to do to attract people.
So as traffic issues continue to rise in the city of Franklin, what do you see the future being of public transit in the city?
Oh. Public transit. Well, I wish we had a magic wand, Brooke, because we need a magic wand. We are a day late and $1 short on transit. It's too bad we didn't think of this 50 years ago, 20 years ago even. But who would have thunk it, as they say, that Franklin would be 73,000 by now. When I moved here, it was 42,000. So, and same with Nashville. Nashville wasn't the booming metropolis. Like, you've got New York, Chicago, and LA, and you've got Atlanta. And when I lived in DC, we were just moving away from DC when we lived in Arlington at Seven Corners when they put the metro in. They started putting the metro in the day we moved. And so I was glad to be gone for all the construction, actually. But we didn't have the foresight to look at that. We didn't know really that we would be who we are today. I don't think Nashville even realized that. I wish we had a crystal ball where we could have seen that and planned ahead. Transit is so expensive. Light rail would be amazing if we could have light rail. But that is just so astronomically expensive. As an alderman, I have attended every transit seminar, every transit and transportation symposium. Power of 10 was just recently down in Nashville. I go to all of them, every one of them. because I feel I have a responsibility in Cool Springs being the hub, of commerce there. I have a real big responsibility in that area. So I'm always in tune with what's going on with the transportation, and I know we're going to have to, I think one of our answers is rapid bus transit to really step that up. We have right now 2 buses that come from Spring Hill, stop in Franklin, go on to Nashville, they go to Vanderbilt, Nashville, and these bus rapid transit, I think we're spending around $54,000 a year from Franklin. Brentwood used to, and they bowed out, and now they're not adding anything to it, so they don't stop there anymore. And I think the people of Brentwood aren't happy about that, but I think if we stopped our transit here right now, I think we'd have quite a few disgruntled people, but we need to have more and more people know about rapid bus transit. And we could do bus on the shoulder, we could do bus on the HOV lanes. I think you could also charge people a fee to ride in the HOV lanes. You can do that. The federal government will allow you. I'm not a big proponent of HOV lanes because what happens, just like our tax dollars, we send them up to DC, they send them back to us with strings attached. Hey, that's our money, but you're telling us now what we can do with it? So the same thing with HOV lanes. They give us all this money, and now they said, okay, but you have to abide by this. Well, we don't even enforce that, and that's another thing. So we ought to be thinking outside the box, and we need to think that, hey, would it be better if we could charge a certain rate to people that want to travel in HOV legally, and then do bus rapid transit, or maybe bus rapid transit down the middle? The other thing is, it's always difficult when you get to the last mile, like, where do you take people? Because you don't, if you go in even light rail or bus rapid transit, you get there, then you dump people off, and what are they going to do? Walk 4 or 5 blocks to get to work in the rain, in the 100-degree heat? So these things we have to be concerned about. How does the transportation function, and how does it function in the end? One thing I am working on, I'm working on a circulator for Cool Springs. I was to be out in Denver with the chamber, and I didn't get to go. And I've been talking with the former mayor out there. We've been changing emails back and forth with the circulator, because what they have out there is something very similar to what we need in Cool Springs. What we need in Cool Springs is basically something you'd find on a college campus, say University of Georgia, for instance. They're very similar to our Cool Springs area. And you know how a circulator goes around a college campus. Well, that's what we need in Cool Springs, something that would circulate during the day to keep people out of their cars from going out from Jackson Life or Nissan or people in some of the office buildings and saying, hey, I want to go down to Wild Ginger for lunch, or I need to run over to the medical center and get a test, or I need to run over here and do some shopping. And everybody has to go and get in their cars, and they have to drive there. There's more cars on the roads in Cool Springs during the day. And then people have very limited time. So you get in your car. First of all, you have to walk to your parking garage, get in your car, then drive, then fight the traffic, then park. Then you walk in and do your shopping or do your business, get back to your car, drive back to your place, park in the parking garage or wherever, and then walk back to your desk. And like, how often can people actually do that? So every 10 minutes we need a circulator going around our campus of Cool Springs. And we'll probably need a green line, a blue line, and a yellow line, different lines that would be more rapid, going up and down and taking us from one area to another area, one that stops along the way in different areas. So I'm looking at that. I'm working with Glenn McGee from South Star, Alan Thompson with Reagan Smith, and Debbie Henry with Franklin Transit. So we're working to see if we can make this come into reality. And maybe we can even go out to the outlining areas of our Cool Springs neighborhoods and pick up people who might work in the Cool Springs area. We have to make sure that they want to ride that. We just did a survey, Franklin Transit did, and we were able to get about 3,000 participants, which was really good. And we just have the results of that, and it told us a lot of information that we're going to need to know. So we're going to work on that. If I'm re-elected, I'll be working on that. That'll be one of my passions, because it is my passion, but it'll be one of my focuses. That, economic development, But especially transit, I think we need to start stepping up to the plate here for Franklin.
And I was going to ask you specifically about the Franklin Transit Authority because last week in their meeting they said that they were going to have 2 new routes on the bus line. I wasn't sure if you're aware of this, but one line will be running through Cool Springs to Columbia State to Williamson Medical. So what you're saying, it sounds like they're going to be instituting that.
Yeah, that's through Franklin Transit, and they will be, that's all brand new, and that's going to be great, especially now when they have the college over there on Liberty Pike in Cool Springs, and that's been needed. So we'll see how that goes, and along with Debbie Henry and people I mentioned before, we're working, I don't know really what we call ourselves, is it a task force or what, but I think it's the Cool Springs Task Force for Transportation. And so we have a lot of work to do, and we're going to be thinking outside the box big time. Funding, of course, is we need to get oil here or something, because we need funding for all of this, and we will have to apply for grants, and we will have to I think we're going to have corporate buy-in. We're going to have some corporate buy-in. And I think there's 2 or 3 ideas that I've been talking about that I think that we'll be pursuing to look at. But the corporations and it's going to be another partnership with our companies and our businesses here in the city and grants. So it's going to be a big mix in order to get the funds that we're going to need to do this with.
My next question is on affordable housing. So some people call it affordable housing, some say workforce housing.
Yep.
On a recent chamber trip to Colorado, the local delegation was introduced to attainable housing. Do you believe this is an issue, and if so, is there a public role to be played in solving it?
Is it attainable, did you ask?
Attainable meaning
Yeah. Do you think it's
rentals, lower cost rentals.
Is it attainable, and does government have a role in it? Most things are attainable if they're reasonable. Yes, we have an issue with housing here. It's a very expensive area to live, and we have got to, as a community, not as a government, but as a community, we really need to partner up with every entity that we can to make better options here, to help produce opportunities and better options for housing. I'm not a fan of the inclusionary zoning, never was. Because I think it's holding people hostage in the wrong way. It's a penalty, not an incentive. And I'm not for penalties, I'm for incentives. And I think inclusionary zoning was a tax, and it was holding developers and builders and business people hostage and saying, you will either give 10% of the housing in your development affordable, or you're going to pay a tax. And so I wouldn't support that. I just think that's the wrong way to go about it. I think there are better ways and smarter ways to go about it.